My name is David. I was born in Boston and grew up in a normal family as a regular high school student. That said, my appearance might not be considered normal. I was already 5 feet 7 inches when I was in elementary school and over 6 feet 3 inches in high school. However, I didn't have a slim model-like physique. I had a heavy, muscular build, weighing almost 220 pounds, with a beard so tough it could beat a razor. So, I've never been seen as my age, and I've been recruited for martial arts clubs and rugby teams many times. But despite my appearance, I'm more of an indoor and introverted person. I liked playing around with computers and even did some programming. So in high school, I joined the computer club, not a sports team, spending my days typing on the keyboard with my bear-like hairy fingers. While it was rare to have a bear in the computer club, there was another unusual member. It was my classmate Rachel, who, to put it mildly, was stunningly beautiful. Walking through town, she would make all the men turn on her, and in the city, she'd get business cards from a number of scouts. And strangely enough, Rachel was my girlfriend. Now, I don't even remember how we met. We just liked each other, that was the start. You might wonder why a beauty like her would date a bear-like guy like me. Honestly, I wonder too. People called us Beauty and the Beast, but our love grew steadily. However, after more than 2 years of dating, our relationship changed significantly. Hey, we'll have to decide which college to go soon. What are you planning, David? Well, I want to be an engineer, so I'll probably go to a college where I can work more with computers. What about you, Rachel? Actually, I'm going to a college in a foreign country. My dad thinks it's best for my future. I was shocked. I couldn't process it all at once. Abroad. Why? Well, I haven't told you this yet, but my dad is the CEO of a company. The company she mentioned was one I'd seen on TV commercials. In short, I'm the company's CEO's daughter. He thinks studying abroad will broaden my perspective for when I eventually get involved in the business. But I want to stay with you, David. I see. But, well, yeah, that's something. What do you want me to do, David? Of course, I want us to stay together. Really? Then help me convince my dad. I want to be with you too. Well, that's a bit. Why not? Because, well, he's a famous CEO, right? I'm not sure my words would be convincing enough. But you just said you wanted to be together. I do want to be together. But, you know, your dad has his own thoughts too. When I looked at Rachel, she had tears welling up in her big eyes. They looked like they would fall any moment. After a moment of silence, Rachel spoke. I hate you, David. I hate you so much. She ran off. I wanted to chase after her, but I couldn't take that step. As a high school student, I didn't feel capable of changing an adult's mind. No, that's not right. I gave up before even trying. I lacked the courage. From that day, a distance grew between us. We stopped seeing each other and lost contact. Before I knew it, we graduated, and Rachel went abroad. There were plenty of opportunities. Rachel is the most precious one to me. Yes, all I had to do was to say that to her. But I couldn't do it. Since then, there's been a huge hole in my heart, and nothing I did could fill that void. I spent my days filled with regret. I graduated from college without much direction, started working at a company without much purpose, and kept working aimlessly. Before I knew it, nearly 10 years had passed since I joined the company. Despite my thick fingers, I managed my work competently and even took on mentoring younger colleagues. However, the more I worked, the more uncomfortable I felt at the company. It was all because of my boss, Steve, who became my direct supervisor along the way. Steve was not particularly capable but seemed to have a cozy relationship with HR, allowing him to hold a position beyond his abilities. Unable to see himself objectively, he treated his subordinates terribly. Among them, I often became the target, perhaps because of my noticeable appearance. I was constantly berated for unreasonable things, blamed for the mistakes of juniors and superiors alike, and criticized at every turn. I often thought about quitting a job with such a boss. How many times had I considered it? But I never had the courage to take that step. I lacked the resolve to change my situation. So, I continued to work, feeling drained and unmotivated. However, one day, something happened that was simply unacceptable. During a business negotiation with a client in Boston, Steve made a crucial mistake. And then, he blamed everything on me. The mistake was simple: he sent the wrong data to the client, causing significant errors in their system. I had definitely debugged the data and handed it to Steve. Yet, during the multiple exchanges, he must have lost track. Steve ended up sending the old data. It was clear from the properties and update timestamps of the sent data. Yet, when I pointed this out to Steve, he wouldn't listen to me at all. Instead, he blamed me for not managing the data properly. At this point, nothing I said would be heard. My colleagues sympathized but kept silent, fearing the fallout would reach them. Anyway, this is your mistake. What are you going to do about it? Our relationship with this client could be ruined. Go apologize to them right now. Right now? To Boston? What, do you have a problem with that? You're always like this, always dissatisfied. I understand, I'm sorry. I'll head there immediately. So, I packed my things and boarded a train to Boston. I never thought I'd return home in such a way. I hadn't visited my family in a long time. Feeling despondent, I honestly doubted my ability to continue at this company. I was sure I had acquired enough skills as an engineer. I would seriously need to consider finding a new job. As I gazed out the window, lost in thought, the sky was overcast, hinting at snow. I arrived at the station, took a taxi, and headed to the client's office. After explaining the situation at the reception, I waited nervously for the client. At first, the two representatives approached me with extreme anger. But after I apologized profusely and handed over the correct data, they finally calmed down. When they learned I was from Boston, we chatted about our hometowns, and by evening, we had bonded, with them even saying, "Please come again." I felt a sense of accomplishment, but it was quickly shattered when I called Steve from the taxi on my way back. "What were you doing until this time?" "Well, I was talking with the client, and time just flew by." "It took you too long. You're really bad at negotiations, aren't you? You weren't just out drinking somewhere, were you?" I didn't even feel like explaining anymore, so I was just listening without saying anything back. Steve then told me to return to the office. He wanted me to summarize the details of the negotiation and apology on the train ride back. Filled with an indescribable sense of emptiness, I closed my eyes until I arrived at the station. But unfortunately, I arrived at the station quickly. Though it was my hometown, I didn't have time to visit my family or enjoy the local food and drink. I had to return to New York to report today's events and outcomes. All because of that detestable Steve. I felt a mix of exhaustion, hunger, and frustration, and tears welled up in my eyes. This was unacceptable. I was back in my hometown after a long time. I thought I should do something, so I headed into the station. It was past 6 p.m., and the train would arrive in about 30 minutes. I decided to quickly grab some sushi, but it didn't go so well. The sushi and izakaya places in the station were all crowded with people lining up outside. I didn't have enough time to wait in line. So, I tried to pick out a good bento box to satisfy myself even a little. Considering I had to return to work, drinking on the train was out of the question. Feeling a bit down, I ended up buying crab sushi and a bottle of green tea, as I did every time I came back home. With a heavy heart, I paid for my meal and checked my watch, seeing that there was still time before the train arrived. That said, I didn't have anything else I wanted to do. Actually, staying in the station with all its temptations was uncomfortable, so I decided to head to the platform early. When I got to the platform, it was still early, and there were hardly any people. I trudged to a bench to rest my tired body, and at the far end of the platform, a couple was making a lot of noise. I figured they were probably drunk and having fun, and I opened my laptop to start writing the report. Just then, I heard a woman's high-pitched voice. "Stop. Don't touch me. Let me go." Curious about the commotion, I turned to look and saw that it was a woman who had shouted. On closer inspection, it was clear they weren't a couple. The woman was dressed in an elegant, high-end coat, while the man was an older guy with thinning hair. Even from a distance, it was obvious the man was drunk, and the woman was clearly uncomfortable. I quickly put my laptop back in my bag and headed towards them. "Stay away. I'll call the police." "Hey, what's going on here?" Ha? Who are you? The man turned around, visibly startled.